Well, I'm not sure that we have anything approved for them. Right, yeah, but you don't have an issue. As long as we don't, as long as we can get small problems too, is we don't get any. I think we should. I would. Yeah, yeah, okay. Carol on Saturday. Cheryl and Lisa. Oh, did you? Her granddaughter. What? Perfect. No leaves. Yeah. I like it. So we have all these people. So. Okay, so like we have, I don't want my tree taken down. It's half done, but it's still alive. You're killing a living being. Would you kill your? Yes. And so then all these people don't tree. Now we're starting to plant trees. We're getting like an outpouring. I don't want a tree. Okay, so you cannot win. Why did you? What did you guys say? They overreact all the time. Why are they calling her? Oh, they weren't calling, they were calling us. And she's like, it says public. Yeah. Does it even have a address? And it has. And neither of those. Nobody came in. Nothing is here. Nobody came in today. Her phone was ringing off the hook. Phone was ringing, but no people. So I was just telling, she was like, go to public works, call the number on the left. So they. Nobody wants to just. No, you can't. Absolutely. Which one was that? No. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You can do that. Brian, are we streaming? Yeah. Right, the time is 7 p.m. We'll call this meeting to order. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, could I have a roll call, please?
Mayor Pulaski.
Here.
Trustee Berkshire.
Here.
Trustee Delapenna.
Here.
Trustee Domke.
Here.
Trustee Lanisa. Here. Trustee Perkowski.
Here.
Trustee Trejo.
Here. We have a quorum. We'll move on to presentation of the prepared agenda. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Yes.
Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Seeing none, that motion carries. We'll now move to Village Board public comment. Anyone wishing to provide comment on a topic or an agenda item may address the Village Board during the public comment and public hearing segments of the Village Board agenda by submitting comments in advance using our online form or during the meeting. Madam Clerk, do we have any submitted in advance?
2.
All right.
Diana.
Please approach the podium and make sure the mic's turned on. And if you don't mind, state your name for the record and address if you so choose.
My name is Diana Hoke, and I'm actually a resident of Bloomingdale. But I came here tonight because I understand that Roselle is considering becoming a member of the Greenest Region Compact. So I thought that was very cool. In Bloomingdale, unfortunately, I don't think we're even considering it. So the first thing I wanted to say is that it sounds like it's going to be neutral as far as costs. Sounds like you guys are already doing a lot of the stuff. So, you know, that's kind of a no-brainer. The second thing I want to say is I know a lot of municipalities are having some trouble funding new infrastructure or infrastructure changes for stormwater management. And as storms seem to sit and hang longer in the Midwest, you know, we're seeing more frequent flooding, more intense storm, et cetera. You know all this. It's measurable. It's proven. Climate change or not, it's just happening. So between the fact that it's not really going to cost anything and the fact that By doing this, you might actually attract federal dollars more easily for your stormwater management by having that badge of greenest region. I think that's something you should do and support. And then the most important thing is that you guys will look so much hipper than Bloomingdale if you do this.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other public comment tonight, Madam Clerk?
Greg.
And again, if you don't mind, for the record, stating your name and address if you so choose.
Greg Lyden, 238 Bloomfield Parkway in Bloomingdale. Good evening. Thank you for your time tonight. Yesterday, I sent all of you an email explaining my concerns about the approval of the River Bluff LLC cannabis dispensary. More specifically, the location of the dispensary at 1350 West Lake Street, right next to a special educational center operated by Lake Park High School District 108. As a taxpayer in the Lake Park High School District, I'm disappointed to learn that the Village of Roselle has even considered this as a viable location for a dispensary. District 108 used approximately $200,000 of taxpayer funds to build out this facility about 2 to 3 years ago. Now they may be forced to relocate this program to another site at an unknown additional cost to the Lake Park High School taxpayers. This certainly doesn't sound like government bodies working together. I know you're also aware of the proximity of the dispensary to the Coach Light Skate Center, a venue where children frequent. As a reminder, House Bill 1438 states, no cannabis business establishment or any other person or entity shall place or maintain or cause to be placed or maintain an advertisement of cannabis or a cannabis-infused product in any form through any medium within 1,000 feet of the perimeter of a school grounds, playground, recreational center or facility, a child care center, a public park or public library, or a game arcade to which admission is not restricted to 20 persons 21 years of age or older. The fact that the Village of Roselle trustees are willing to approve a cannabis dispensary knowing all of this information is unfortunate. At this point this evening, all I can ask is that you postpone your vote on the approval of River Bluff LLC until you have talked to more of your community and heard their voices, especially the voices of the special needs community that Roselle has always been so supportive of. Thank you.
Thank you so much. For the record, I just want to note that we've been in close contact with Lake Park ever since we received an application and have been in close collaboration with the administration. So that way we're being very transparent with them as far as that goes. And the concerns as far as marketing goes, at this point, the proposal only includes signage for their business, which does not count as promotion or marketing from that standpoint under the state law. Any other public comment here tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on to officials and staff reports. Under mine, I'd like to entertain the board adopt an ordinance amending the code of ordinance of the Village of Roselle, Illinois, limitation on the number of licenses covering the sale of alcoholic liquors in the Village of Roselle to increase the number of Class T licenses from 15 to 16 for Tre Fratelli Restaurante, the Villaggio Group. Thank you, Lee. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? And this is as we kind of discussed prior for Villaggio to have their video gambling license. Madam Clerk, when you're ready, a roll call.
Trustee Trejo.
Aye.
Trustee Lanisa. Aye. Trustee Berkshire.
Yes.
Trustee Delapenna.
Aye.
Trustee Domke.
Aye.
Trustee Perkowski.
Aye. That motion carries. Other than that, I know we've got a busy holiday season ahead of us, so I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. Before we get to that, and appreciate all the activity and involvement from the board the past couple of days. On the 10th, we had a very successful open house with the library district that was well received. That meeting is recorded on YouTube for anyone to look. I think it's had a lot of views since we had it. So a lot of public traction and for the most part, all positive comments. So that's been really great to see. So appreciate those of you who are able to be in attendance, but also the community members that participated. So with that being said, that's all I have under my report tonight. Any trustees have a report tonight? Seeing none, Village Clerk.
I would like to thank everyone that attended the Friends of the Library book sale this past weekend. We had a great turnout, and like the mayor said, we received a lot of positive feedback on the updated facility master plan. And I'd also like to share that the sign up for the Centennial Winterfest Gingerbread House contest ends this Friday, the 18th. And you can find the registration form at roselle.il.us/winterfest.
Great. And congratulations, Sir Clerk, for hosting a wonderful meeting with the clerks for the metropolitan area this past week, representing our community well. So thank you for that. Village Attorney.
No report, Mayor.
Village Administrator.
Report.
All right, we'll move on to unfinished business. First, we have the consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine, procedural, informational, self-explanatory, or non-controversial in nature and will be enacted in one motion. There will be no discussion of these items. Tonight, we have presentation and approval of the village board minutes of October 24th, 2022. Adopt a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a memorandum of understanding by and between the Village of Roselle and Itasca Bank and Trust and Company. Adopt a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a collective bargaining agreement by and between the Village of Roselle and International Union of Operating Engineers Local 150. Pass an ordinance amending Chapter 13, Article 6, Section 13 through 92 of the Code of Ordinances of the Village of Roselle, Illinois. Adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for the concept design and permitting engineering services for the Devlin wastewater treatment plant expansion and nutrient removal upgrades between the Village of Roselle and Trotter and Associates, in the amount of $203,700. Adopt a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of an agreement in between the Village of Roselle and Otis Elevator Company. And adopt a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of an agreement by and between the Village of Roselle and Comfort Indoor Solutions Incorporated. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Whenever you are ready, Madam Clerk.
Trustee Trejo.
Aye.
Trustee Della Penna.
Aye.
Trustee Berkshire.
Yes.
Trustee Domke.
Aye.
Trustee Lanisa. Aye. Trustee Burkowski.
Aye. Motion carries. We'll now move on to community development. Trustee Domke.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to open public hearing for the annexation of 22 West 303 Foster Avenue.
There's a second? Second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Domke.
Aye.
Trustee Trejo.
Aye.
Trustee Berkshire.
Yes.
Trustee Della Penna.
Aye.
Trustee Lanisa. Aye. Trustee Burkowski.
Aye. At this, I'd just like to note that public notice was published in the Daily Herald. Trying to see the date on this. October 28th. But at this time, in conversation with the petitioner, they're not ready yet for us to move forward at this time. So I would just ask Trustee Domke that we can make a motion to continue this to a date certain of November 28th.
So therefore, I would make a motion to delay this annexation to our next meeting on November 28th.
Second. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Trustee Domke.
Aye.
Trustee Trejo.
Aye.
Trustee Berkshire.
Yes.
Trustee Della Penna.
Aye.
Trustee Lanisa. Aye. Trustee Burkowski.
Aye. And that motion carries. We'll continue the public hearing at our next board meeting.
Okay, then I would like to make a motion to pass an ordinance granting a special use for the property commonly referred to as 1350 West Lake Street, Roselle, Illinois, 60172 for adult use cannabis dispensary.
There's a second? Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, could I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Domke. Drobes.
We're not discussing anything about the letter or anything like that.
I mean,
Well, I just, I'm willing to vote, but I'm trying to say that another issue was brought up and at least we should say something about it.
this is the time to discuss it. So if you'd like to discuss
Yeah,
it,
I
by all
mean-
means.
It brought some valid points, so I'd like to just say something about the two different sites. The first option we had when we first approved cannabis was thinking about putting it in the factory area. And that has its advantages. It's out of the way. People don't see it. There's only a couple of exits out of there. So I believe that that's something that security would be in good shape with a kind of a location there. And it wouldn't be near anybody's homes. The other thing was that this bank building, being on Lake Street, that's a pretty high profile visual thing and the police could get there rather quickly. The lighting is really good over there and the building was built for security purposes. And when you have an industry that deals only in cash right now, I think the bank building, in my opinion, is a very good building to put it in. And from what I've seen, and I've been not necessarily a supporter about cannabis, but what I've seen in other localities, including Schaumburg, the sites are actually pristine and they're not a hangout or they're not a drug area. So I can see validity in both sites. So I don't think it's like we're up here as a board just kind of rushing something through. I think we've thought about this quite a bit. And the state legalized it. So for us to take any kind of unilateral thing to prevent things from things that are legal would cause the village to be liable for a lot of different issues too. So I just wanted to say that the people that came forward here need to hear that we have thought of this. This isn't a slam dunk. Let's just get it done and go home. And I think everybody in here feels something about this. But the state approved it, so Roselle decided that we would be silly to fight what the state wanted to allow for the residents. So therefore, where are we at now?
Is there any other discussion from the board? Lee? Oh, sorry. Trustee Trejo and then trustee Berkshire.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind everyone, obviously, this is more so for people watching at home potentially, but not only did the state approve it, but we had a referendum on the last election, or I guess 2 elections ago, to ask the residents of Roselle if they wanted a cannabis dispensary. And as I said earlier, in full disclosure, like I voted no at the ballot box, but I will respect the decision of the Village of Roselle resident.
Trustee Berkshire.
I was going to say the same thing with the exception that I voted yes.
Any other trustees have any comments to make? I'll just add that DuPage County recently has allowed cannabis dispensaries, which could just as easily be in the exact same street across from where we're considering, which would then direct tax dollars away from the village. Hanover Park has recently allowed it, and they're allowing 1 per county, which could just as easily be down the street. So without being tribalistic about it, the fact is this could pop up right on our boundary within these within the bubble of where we're considering today, but this would benefit our community with the money, as opposed to going to another community. Coach Light was put on the market in September and will likely be redeveloped into something different. We have no proposals at this time to consider, but think likely Lake Street, as we've continued to do studies and to evaluate its redevelopment opportunity, this is probably the trend of it continuing to move forward. So. Madam Clerk, can we have a roll call?
Trustee Domke,
So from my heart, I will vote yes.
trustee Della Penna,
Aye.
trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
trustee Lanisa. Aye. Trustee Firkowski,
Aye.
trustee Trejo.
Aye.
That motion carries. Thank you so much. Anything else tonight, trustee?
Isn't that enough?
Sure.
Making sure.
Sounds great. Thank you, Wayne. We have nothing in our administration, fire, or police. Trustee Berkshire, we have quite a bit for public works tonight.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor.
Get some water first.
Yeah, I should. So I'd start by making a motion to adopt a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement by and between the Village of Roselle and the Commuter Rail Division of the Regional Transportation Authority.
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we have a roll call, please.
Trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Della Penna.
Aye.
Trustee Domke,
Aye.
trustee Lanisa. Aye. Trustee Firkowski.
Aye. That motion carries.
Thank you. So now I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of an agreement by and between the Village of Roselle and Garland DBS Inc., Joint Purchasing Cooperative, OMNIA.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Della Penna.
Aye.
Trustee Domke.
Aye.
Trustee Lanisa. Aye. Trustee Firkowski.
Aye.
That motion carries.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an intergovernmental agreement between the Village of Schaumburg, Illinois and the Village of Roselle, Illinois, related to wetland mitigation construction and construction engineering services for the Rodenberg Road improvements.
Second.
Any discussion? Just want to say kudos to staff. I know there's been a lot of back and forth whenever we're collaborating with a neighbor, especially larger than us. It can sometimes be difficult. So I really appreciate all the work. And this is a great opportunity for us to use federal grant dollars to help us, repave our streets. So thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Della Penna.
Aye.
Trustee Domke,
Aye.
trustee Lanisa. Aye. Trustee Firkowski.
Aye. That motion carries.
To make a motion to adopt a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a change order by and between the Village of Roselle and Comfort Indoor Solutions, Inc.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Della Penna.
Aye.
Trustee Domke.
Aye.
Trustee Lanisa. Aye. Trustee Firkowski.
Aye. That motion carries.
Finally, I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of an agreement by and between the Village of Roselle and Linco Equipment Sales Joint Purchasing Cooperative, Sourcewell.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Berkshire.
Yes.
Trustee Trejo.
Aye.
Trustee Delapenna.
Aye.
Trustee Domke.
Aye.
Trustee Lanisa. Trustee Prokowski.
Aye. That motion carries.
That is it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Finance. Trustee Prokowski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move approval of the accounts payable list for November 14th, 2022 in the amount of $1,675,924.97.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Prokowski.
Aye.
Trustee Trejo.
Aye.
Trustee Berkshire.
Yes.
Trustee Delapenna.
Aye.
Trustee Domke.
Aye.
Trustee Lanisa. Aye.
That motion carries.
I have nothing else to report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you so much. We'll now move on to new business. We do have a second opportunity for public comment. Does anyone wish to address the board at this time? Seeing none, we'll move to our first presentation regarding the Metro Mayor's Caucus Greenest Region Compact. Assistant Administrator Lawrence.
So as the board knows, at this September 26th meeting, we had numerous members of the public come in and speak about the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus's Greenest Region Compact and the benefits that the village could have for joining that collaboration, as well as a resident from Bloomingdale tonight, again, speaking on it. I think it's important to note that the village has done sustainability efforts and has been promoting its sustainability outside of this collaboration, but I do think that my memo kind of highlights the additional enhancements that the village can take advantage of from being incorporated with over 140 municipalities, numerous counties, and then other government agencies that have kind of taken advantage of the collaboration and the efforts that this coalition has done from sustainability efforts and kind of honing in and creating some type of framework that municipalities like Roselle can kind of look towards when we move forward with funding and other opportunities for sustainability. So attached to the memo is a resolution that would formally adopt Roselle into the coalition with edits that's also been approved by Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus staff.
And then just to add to that, I think based on the individual conversations we had, we tried to take into consideration what the trustees have voiced as just their general concerns. And so I think that's where, and based upon its resources and organizational capacity is what mutually the organization that is sponsoring this and we felt was a good compromise point. So any feelings from the board on this? Trustee Berkshire?
Curious on downsides there may be. I mean, if this is something that sounds ivory tower, but yet not everyone's following suit. So what concerns might I not be aware of?
I think it's individualized for each community. I think, for Roselle, we've already taken advantage of some of the collaboration that's currently existed, like the Soul Smart program. We were labeled the Silver Award participant for that program. So I think it's individualized for communities. And then for us specifically, I don't see a downside right now. There's no cost for this. There's no 100% guarantee that out of all the, 50 goals and, numerous initiatives that there's, reporting measurements that have to be conducted. I think it's just, again, kind of a good way to hone in on some of the strategic initiatives surrounding sustainability and aligns with what we've already been doing.
And if we get bogged down, we've got this the second time we've had a room full of people that would volunteer to help us.
Any other comments from the board? Yes, Wayne.
I do kind of like this one where it says based upon our resources and organizational capacity. So it doesn't lock us into something we can't afford. And I like what Donna said. Diane. I like what she said about, possibly putting us in a position for grants that are maybe more doable now by being in this organization. And like you said, if we're already doing these things, why not just propose who we are and be proud of it?
I don't see any other comments. Is there consensus from the board to move forward with the resolution with the changes included here tonight? Seeing,
Yes.
Yep.
all right. Staff has direction. So we'll put this on our agenda for adoption on the 28th then. Thank you. We'll move on to our next item, provide direction to staff regarding a lead service line replacement policy. So
Obviously, lead is not a good green initiative, is it?
Wait for
the presentation to load. So we're here to talk about our water lead service line policies and practices that we need to discuss moving forward. So all right, Kristen's advancing and I'm advancing. So we've got several topics in front of us tonight. What the current EPA lead service requirements are, what we're doing as far as Roselle and our inventory, some policy decisions that need to be developed, our current public outreach program and future outreach program, as well as our waiver process and policy decisions. So the first thing is the EPA requirements. So the EPA earlier this year passed new legislation that requires lead service lines, whether they're partial service lines or full service lines, to be incorporated into a lead service policy for replacement in future years. That includes complete inventories, a lead service line plan and replacement goals, and notification requirements. The timeline for this program is well laid out by the EPA. In 2023, we have to submit our material inventory, so that defines what lead services we have. In 2024, we have to submit our initial lead service line replacement plan and an update to that in 2025. And then beginning in 2027, we'll have to annually start replacing 7% of the lead service lines in our system, which will need to be completed by 2042. So we're first going to talk about our lead service line inventory and really what a lead service line is. So before you'll see a water service line, there's two portions of the service. One is currently owned by the village and the other is owned by the property owner. From the main to the B box, which is typically 1 foot behind the sidewalk, is the responsibility of the village. And from the B box into the home is the responsibility of the property owner. Currently, we have about 8,400 approximate 8,400 services within the village. Of that, we have 240 known or suspected lead services. And there's a variety of different.
Could you just make sure to explain what the B box or the Buffalo box is for anyone kind of watching?
Absolutely. So the Buffalo box is our ability to turn off water to a property. So it's a demarcation area that we're able to, if there's an issue inside the property or for non-payment, we're able to shut the water service off to the home.
Yeah, so just again, for anyone kind of watching, like if you ever see in your yard, you have that little metal circle with a pentagon on the top, or yeah, a pentagon basically on top. It takes a special wrench basically to get it off.
Exactly. Thank you. So there are approximately 240 lead service lines within our community. They consist of either full lead all the way from the water main to the home, partial, half and half. And then we have 30 that are unknown at this time, specifically what they are. And our staff is currently working with residents to verify those ones that are unknown, basically by going into their homes and checking on the interior to make that determination. So the next part is our lead service line policy decision development. And what we've laid out is essentially, the first step is elected official involvement. Staff has been doing our due diligence behind the scenes to understand and working to develop what we think are things that we need to do moving forward. We're here with you tonight to talk about the elected official involvement. And things that we need to consider moving forward are who pays for the private side of the replacement. That will depend on the type of funding that's utilized. And also maybe some consideration of incentives to the private property side of things. The next thing that needs to be considered is the restoration of private property. There's restoration on the outside of the home and then also inside of the home. And then what the plan for replacements and what the timeline for these replacements will look like, and we'll discuss that later. So based on what we suspect are 240 lead service lines at this point, the total cost for replacement of those is anywhere from 2.4 million to 3.6 million. That is just from the water main up to 18 inches within the home. That's all that includes. So if you're looking on the left side of the slide, on the public side cost, again, is about $960,000. That's the village's responsibility to replace that portion of it. If you're looking on the private side costs, it ranges from about 1.4 million to 2.6 million. And again, that's just from that B box in the front yard up to 18 inches within the home. What is not included in that cost are restoration. And restoration is interior restoration. When you get in homes, there's a variety of different scenarios that you can see. It could be an unfinished basement, it could be a crawl space, it could be a very elaborately finished home. So we've put a 30% estimated cost, but that's really an unknown until you get into every single one of those locations and evaluate what that looks like. So if a private property owner were to have to pay for their portion, we're estimating that total cost to be from $7,800 to just over $14,000. So some policies that can be or that we've put for discussion, there's a wide variety of things that could be discussed, but a cost sharing program could be the public side being paid by the municipality, the private side being paid by the property owner with possible village assistance. And these are things that we're looking for some direction on. Are the property owners going to be responsible for their share? Could we provide low interest loans? Could we provide zero interest loans? Could we provide some sort of lump sum financial incentive to assist with that? Some of the communities noted on here are doing programs such as this, but there's a variety of options that we can consider. Another example policy, which is being done in the city of Chicago, is that the municipality pays for the entire service line replacement. One thing we wanted to know is if there is any sort of federal funding used for any project that includes lead service line, it does require the municipality to pay for that. So one other kind of added, if we're not doing a specific municipal project and a property owner comes and says, I'd like to replace my lead service line, that's another component that we felt is important to talk about, or at least consider some sort of policy that who determines or who pays or bears the expense of that replacement. And would we provide any financial assistance for that as well? And again, listing the same types of things that were discussed in the last slide. So the next part is just really talking about outreach, with anything or any project, especially of this nature, public outreach and communication is going to be critical to the success of this program. So these are just noting some of the things that, we would likely be doing and considering moving forward, and just that it's not overlooked, but it'll be part of our process. So what happens if a property owner refuses to either let you into your home or says, I don't want my lead service replaced. I'm fine with my lead service and I don't want you to do anything. The EPA has a process in place. It's called a waiver program, and it provides the owner the notification that they do have a lead service or a potential for a lead service. The property owner would be required to sign a waiver, which then is documented with the EPA, and that they're refusing to replace the lead service. And this is just a sample of what their waiver looks like and the responsibilities under the EPA regulations for that. So the next is policy decisions. And so what our next steps are. And so we're just trying to lay out some of what we need to consider and look at moving forward. So we're here today to start the discussion regarding the lead service policy. We will need to develop what that policy looks like and bring that back, a formal policy. Policy implementation. The one thing that we wanted to note is there's the EPA requirements, and yes, we need to do that many years out and have the whole community done. But we do have one project before us in 2023, Maple Avenue, that does have approximately 24 lead service lines. So we'd like to understand what the policy may be so that we might be able to implement that as part of that project. And then the last one is establishing the lead service line replacement timeline. So to wrap things up, these are the things before us that we feel we need to make some policy decisions are. First one being, what portion of the replacement will the village pay for? Will it just be the public side, or should it be the public side and the private side? And or a combination of providing some sort of a financial assistance. The next one is what restoration will be done in private property. The responsibility per the EPA is to go up to 18 inches inside that building and properly seal the building. Outside of that, there is no requirement to go inside and restore finished basements or such. The third one is what restoration will be done on the exterior. same thing, seeding, sodding, replacement of landscaping. And some of that really will come down to construction methods. There are many construction methods that may not have a huge impact on the exterior of the home. And then what would the replacement for the overall services in the community look like? Are we spreading that over the 15 years and doing the 7% per year, completing it in front of that timeline? And that's not something we necessarily need to decide today. And there may be a bigger financial conversation, but it's just something that we should be considering moving forward.
Thank you so much. So a lot of things to discuss. So I think the first thing, let's just open it up on the discussion side is, do we want to be just dealing with the public side or the full replacement, knowing that if we had federal funds, we would have to do full replacement versus public side only. We have more flexibility, but we're probably bearing that cost. So Trustee Berkshire and then Pierkowski.
So my answer would be we would only do the public side. And then as far as the private side, my calculations are that based on giving them some sort of a stipend to help them out, like a $2,000 type of thing, you're looking at roughly $500,000. And then I would look at a 0 interest loan over 5 years, which is one of the options that we had. That would bring them to somewhere based on the numbers at $130 to $240 a month over that 5 years. That way, and we would spread that over the 15 years. So I'm kind of hitting it all because it's gonna be too hard.
Wouldn't have it any other way, Bruce, from you. So
It's gonna be too hard piecemealing it apart. And I would do it over the 15 years so we could spread that cost all across, because the 240 are not going to jump immediately. And we do have to deal with the maple. That's the one we have to immediately hit. That's why I kind of had all these points and notes here, because we do have to have that consideration for them. As far as then inside, then that is on the homeowner. I'm not going to go in and start worrying about drywall, fancy paintings, whatever. And, we could then even look at maybe just seeding of the grass, but you got to be careful with anything else, simply because of the fact that someone's going to have plants, rose bushes and whatever, and we're not going to be in the business of replanting their gardens. We should simply get to the grass, or if they have brick walls or whatever, all of that is on them. We will simply replace the grass and the seeding of that. That, I think, is the whole encompassing of the policy that we're looking for.
Tom.
I'm for full replacement and us pursuing those grants. Especially because, yeah, this is a lot of money, but it is stretched out potentially all the way to 2042. So if we kind of do approach this with a slower thing, because also I'm worried even then, if you're one of these houses with those lead lines, is this going to affect property values in those areas? Is this going to kind of be something that's going to drive people away from potentially wanting to move into some of these places that may, especially those 30 houses that we don't know as we move forward? So, and again, this boils down to like, what is that money to the average homeowner? And it's an EPA regulation. We just have to do it. So, and it's better for everyone down the line to get these lead lines out anyway. So that's why I would just go for paying for all of it, but then maybe with some of the restoration, holding back on that and leaving that to the individual homeowners once it's actually accomplished.
All right, I got one-on-one. Delpana.
I would think, based on answering Tom's question, I would think if a resident signs that waiver not to put it in, leave the lead in the house, I would think that would impact their value of their home. We've got at least one realtor sitting out here, probably get an opinion from her.
So are you in favor of partial payment from the village on it or full replacement?
Well, I would be in favor of partial.
I do have, Mr. Mayor, I do have a question, and actually one on the waiver. So the question was, how does that go through the sale of the house, right? Because it's the homeowner, we'd have to make sure how that somehow ticks to that. But I do like what Tom was saying, if we can get grants. I'm making the assumption there's not going to be the grants that we're going to be able to do this from a private side. And the grant money that we're going to need is to pay for the public side, because that too has got a large portion. So I'm presuming we're not going to get enough grants to pay for all of that private side.
There are grants available. The one thing is it's typically in disadvantaged areas, which we normally do not qualify for. So that's, one thing we're against, but things are coming up all the time and there's nothing to say we couldn't look at that. But I would say right now, of the stuff that we've seen, we have not qualified for.
With that, my question then comes down to is, if we grant this policy as something similar to what I had stated, and if grant money is available, we can always adjust and change, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
And then to answer your question about disclosure, our understanding is that lead disclosure upon sale or lease of the residence is required. I know there's typically a form that you fill out when you sell a home, and then it discloses if there's lead, and they will be notified that there is lead within the home or within the service.
Lee, Wayne, Cheryl, any opinion on the matter of partial or full?
Well, Bruce said it exactly. If there's money available to go more with the plan, I would go with that way. But if not, if we don't get any grants, then a partial would certainly be the compromise that I would think.
I'm in the partial camp. And again, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be pursuing if there's another place to come up with money with grants, then we do that and then we change our direction.
Yeah, I assume you're
So
just in the general, we'll get into the nuts and bolts, but you're in partial, so we can,
yes.
Okay.
unless we get grants.
sounds good. Sounds like that's like the caveat here tonight. Trustee Pierkowski.
It's moot then. So
Sorry.
no, it's just the idea that I'm not even necessarily worried about the lead disclosures. I know there's gonna be lead disclosures. It's the idea of trying to sell a house and then having an additional, oh, you're gonna be staring down this extra added expense could then also draw buyers away from these houses. That was also my concern.
So with the consensus being, I mean, and we'll obviously always try to find opportunities to find grant money to pay for things. If that is not available to us, doing a partial where we're paying for 100% of the public and we're doing some type of private property owners taking on some burden. Do people like what Bruce was proposing as far as a stipend with the 0 interest loan? I don't want to get into all the nitty gritty there, but that way staff can kind of pull things together, Lee.
Only question I have is this area, because it's 240 houses, I don't know if it's big enough, but can we do like some sort of special service area and then like write a 30-year bond against it and then just pay for everything? Like if the residents understood that like, hey, this is what your property tax bill would go up, whatever amount it is, and this would cover like all your costs basically. And then we could potentially kick in some village money into that. So if we estimate it, it's, let's call it, what is it, 2.6 million, like, let's say the village puts in 600,000 of it or something. And then like the rest of it's bonded out and it's a special service area and then it covers everything. I just don't know if it's a big enough area to qualify.
I don't know if we've,
It's certainly something we can look into.
so we'll bring that back as a part of the policy decision. So my only concern would be with 240 properties, are they all densely located close enough that would make sense? And I don't think that's
Tracking and that money, from my understanding, would just go into like a fund that we could then use to do it. I don't know if they have to be close together or not. It's just something out there to help that. And then the only other thing I'd say is in terms of a stipend, I think the stipend should be linked to income level. If someone is, at the poverty level, I think they should get more money. Or if it's a senior citizen, I think they should be able to get more money and qualify for that. If someone's making, $500,000 a year, like I get it, it's an unexpected cost. I mean, my sewer line broke and I had to pay $4,000 to get it fixed and restoration and everything. So that would be the other thing I would bring into the mix.
okay. I'm seeing some nods, so it sounds like there's some openness to stipend, having it be prorated based on either status or age. So we can have staff kind of look into that. Any other thoughts from the group that we want to send staff home with to work on a policy to bring back?
What is the Maple Avenue project to begin?
It would typically be in like springtime of 23.
Any other questions for staff on this? So what I'm gonna say is we're looking at a partial kind of hybrid approach where we would pay for 100% of the public side. The private side, we would have some hybrid approach where there'd be some tiering as far as a stipend to be determined. 0% interest loans included, and the evaluation of whether a special service area would be applicable in this area and how that could be implemented and what those steps would be. As far as the policy side, anything that you need more from that side of things?
Great, thank you.
Bring back, I know there's some opinions on restoration, but I think let's look at a policy and then we can get more into the restoration side once we have a better idea of what that looks like for the next one. So
Thank you so much.
thank you. All right, and then we have the Public Works double hitter tonight. Provide direction to staff regarding revisions to the village code of ordinance regarding private property within the right of way. So with the special assistance from community development. I'm glad you guys split up the Karens though, so that we didn't have two Karens for the one presentation. So.
So I'm here tonight again to talk to you about private items within the village's right of way, including driveways and mailboxes. I'll talk about driveways and then I will hand it off to Karen and community development to discuss the mailboxes. From time to time, we receive permit applications for non-standard decorative driveways and aprons. These can be anything from stamped or colored concrete to brick pavers. The apron is the part of the driveway that falls within the village's right of way. So when the village needs to repair them due to water main breaks, utility work, road construction, or any other village operations, restoring those driveways in kind is a significant cost expense for the village. We're looking to update the village code to allow non-standard driveway aprons within the village's right of way. However, we would either restore the impacted area only with standard materials, so either concrete or asphalt, or we would reimburse the property owner for what the village would pay a contractor to replace in either concrete or asphalt. It's a similar policy that other communities have in the area. We propose codifying this change and then providing information on this code requirement to the permit applicants when they apply for the driveway permit or when it's issued to allow them to know ahead of time that the installation of the non-standard materials is at their own risk. So the draft language that we're proposing is in the code revision is in your packet.
So let's pause there. Any opinions on the apron portion of this? General consensus to move forward with as staff has proposed?
Stated.
All right. Thank you. And I think this is great, just to add clarity for everyone's sake, transparency, and everyone knows how to proceed going forward. So thank you. Mailboxes, just in time for our first snowfall of the season, which we're not going to hit any tomorrow, right? So anyway.
All right, so as we were talking about aprons, the issue of decorative non-standard mailboxes came up. I know it was discussed in regards to snow removal last year, but right now we do not have any standards in the code about mailboxes at all. So this has come up with code enforcement when we've actually had, I think, the post office contact us that people haven't maintained their mailboxes, so it's difficult to deliver mail. So the first thing staff is recommending is just adopting the USPS standards so that we can move through the code enforcement process with properties that are either not maintaining or something happens to it, so that we can ensure compliance and everybody can receive mail. And then this sort of brings up the decorative aspect because we do have a lot of them within the village. So the USPS just considers a wood or metal post at a certain height a standard mailbox. And we would, similar to the decorative aprons, we want to allow the decorative mailboxes, but we want to sort of codify again that that's at the property owner's own risk. So in case of road work or a water main break, similarly to what Kristen said, a homeowner knows it's at their own risk and it's in the village code that anything decorative is at their own risk. And then if we do have road work that impacts a decorative mailbox, we can either provide a wooden post mailbox to the property owner or the dollar equivalent of that mailbox to them.
Great. Any questions or direction? Trustee Pierkowski.
So I remember in that discussion, part of the issue is also those non-standard ones that are like the brick ones. Wasn't there like also a safety issue involved with having a non collapsible structure that close to the street? Is that going to be addressed in this then?
Yeah, so in the packet is the USPS standards, and they do mention in their sort of breakaway material for traffic safety. So that would kind of anything other than what they've described would be considered decorative and would be at the homeowner's own risk.
But what about like risk for drivers and
Hmm.
is there any consideration of that at all or no?
I mean, there are a lot of decorative mailboxes already existing. So I think we would just, the liability would be on the homeowner by adopting this in our code.
Trustee Domke.
So you don't have to have a permit to build these brick mailboxes, do you?
No.
But the thing is, they are building it on our property, so, we have some say so in what this is. I did want to mention one thing, though, that, I checked like Flood Brothers, and if the Flood Brothers hits a concrete mailbox, they will replace it the entire amount. Whereas the village would just give $100 or something for a wooden one. So, I mean, people might say, well, it was the Flood Brothers truck that did that. Let's just arrange that. But I mean, it's a little disconnected, but I agree that, we can't like rebuild mega structures that somebody puts in. And to Tom's point, there's a liability issue. I don't know. I talked to the lawyer about that would we, if by accepting these mega structures and somebody did get hurt, like on Roselle Road, driving 35 miles an hour and they hit one of these brick mailboxes, who would be liable for injuries to that car or driver because they hit something that was non-standard near the road? And I don't know,
Does the attorney want to address the liability concerns?
liability to the village by allowing those things?
First of all, they would have to be whatever, if we are going to move forward with this and we are going to start to codify these matters, there would have to be guidelines that would be adopted as to building those on the right of way. In addition to that, there would also be liability issues and comparative negligence issues as to the drivers operating those vehicles. As long as we're in compliance with the United States Post Office codes and we're, breakaway structures, and we're following those, I see no liability on our part. And to the extent that there's some sort of comparative type negligence, contributory negligence issue, that would fall back on the drivers or operators of the vehicle.
Trustee Berkshire.
That just put us in even a better position if we adopt this where it says that our standard is a wooden post mailbox. Anything outside of that is a decorative. And therefore it's not standard by us nor approved.
I think we're starting to travel the path of allowing these decorative mailboxes, because I think that's what we're talking about. And we're also talking about what that reimbursement would be if they were to construct that. Therefore, those decorative mailboxes would also have to be constructed in compliance with the standards as set forth there in that code. So they would need to be breakaway. They couldn't put a post inside. It wouldn't fall down or shatter. So,
But I think by adopting the USPS standards, I think what you're saying is puts us in a better position because right now we don't have anything on the books
Right.
about the standards for mailboxes.
And so then when you go look at those ones that are these brick monoliths with concrete and mortar, what do we do? Do we just?
They'd be grandfathered in, right?
Yeah, grandfathered in until they need to be replaced.
But is there a liability for the homeowner that put that thing up?
if it's constructed in such a manner that it's not in compliance that with those codes as far as it being breakaway. And to my understanding, most of those are collapsible, even the brick wall. They're just sitting on a small cement foundation. They're not.
Okay. I'll be breakaway depending how fast you were driving.
Oh, that's true. But they'll get knocked over 15 miles an hour.
Trustee Trejo.
I've seen that happen.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the original discussion, I just alignment with the $100 limitation. I think to Wayne's point in terms of like Flood Brothers, I mean, I think if we drive a plow into somebody's property, I mean, I think the village is on the hook for it. I mean, that's just my point of view on that. I mean, I like like I said before, if we had some sort of permit or some sort of acknowledgement, like that's the key differential here, like in the apron situation, you're saying that on the permit, someone's gonna say, yes, I understand that if you have to do something to my apron, it's gonna be just concrete or asphalt. At least that's what it says in the packet, that's gonna be the new permit application. And so there I could see eyes wide open that, okay, I still want this though. So I get it in the future, you're gonna just put concrete in if you have to rip it up, and I'll bear the cost of getting, it repavered if I want it. In this case, this is, it's like no different than a car slamming into me. And then it's just like, okay, well, my liability is $100. I don't care that you have $3,000 in damage. But it's like, no, the damage is real. It's $3,000 or whatever it is. So I'm just not in alignment with that $100 limitation.
That feeling echoed by other members of the board, or no?
No,
All right.
Maybe $100 is a little low, but I do not think we should be going in and paying some of these people $3,000+ to go in and get their mailbox because they wanted to put stone and bury their mailbox inside of it. That's why I think we should be adopting the standard of what the USPS says. Maybe $100 is a little light, but we can figure out what that number is. And the other thing I want to make sure of is even when we were to go pay that out, whatever the dollar is, it has to be by the actual truck hitting it, not the fact that we're going to get a wave of snow and it knocks it over. Because back to what you were just saying, Michael, is that they're just sitting on a concrete slab. And you start building that snow up and that momentum of that plow and the plow not hitting it itself will and has damaged mailboxes. So it has to be a direct hit by the plow or backing up in some manner because it's Mother Nature at that point. Or we don't plow your street.
The other Karen, we'll talk about that more.
Yeah, we'll discuss that next. I mean, I think to your point, Lee, I think one thing we could absolutely do is if we did adopt these standards, I know Public Works does take inventory of mailboxes as they get ready for the season. We could easily do a notification to atypical mailbox of just the standards that have been adopted to encourage them to review what they have and just know that all future mailboxes that are of a atypical type will be bound by these construction standards in the future. So I think we could do some public notification to help with some of those concerns. Trustee Trejo.
And can I just request that, because I'll be voting no on the mailbox, can that be split up? The aprons and the mailboxes on a separate vote?
Sure, we can split that up. Any other? Oh, yes, Trustee Domke.
Question. What are we talking about here? 100,000 mailboxes going down a year, or 25, or how many does a typical season generate? As far as.
Well, and if we could be clear, how many of those are the typical post mailboxes versus how many are monument mailboxes, if we can?
Yeah, so 2 years ago when we had lots of snow, it was about 20 mailboxes. It was a wet, heavy snow season, which contributed mailboxes in disrepair. Wet, heavy snow takes those mailboxes out. Last year, it was about 7. And really most of them were more to condition of existing mailboxes. I don't think we had any last year that I recall that were any direct hit damage.
Okay, good to know.
So I would say consensus move forward with the policy as proposed, and we'll just split the votes and we'll just make sure we do a public awareness campaign. Snow plow initiation and no parking changes.
Are we talking about, so we're going with the snow policy then?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so the last part on here is no parking restriction during snowfall events. So our current no parking restrictions are 3 inches. So anytime we hit 3 inches of snow or more, no parking is allowed on the street to allow us to amply take care of the plowing throughout the residential and commercial neighborhoods. So we've noticed several situations where waiting till the 2 inches and beyond that, or waiting to the 3 inches is actually just too late, because by the time we have people on the street and we work with the police department to get the vehicles moved, our plows and stuff are already in those areas, creating us having to go back multiple times in those areas to see where cars are moved. So we have looked at multiple other multiple other communities who have a 2-inch policy, and we're proposing to move to that 2-inch policy. It will take some time to implement that. We may not be necessarily implementing that this year because we'll need to get changes to our traffic code, installation of signage at the entrances to the community, and our outreach program as well. So we're making a recommendation to go from 3 inches to 2 inches.
And hopefully that minimizes any damage that might happen as well. So any opinions from the board on moving from 3 to 2 inches?
Yeah, totally fine.
All right, you've got consensus to move forward. So
Great.
thank you so much for the presentation tonight. That ends our new business. Is there any other business for discussion only? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Meeting is adjourned at 7:56. Thank you, everyone.